To start us off, I want to point out that it's the first game I'm going to play that has a Steam page. Finally, I don't have to go through RPGmakerGamesReal.com and get more spyware than I already get for using OpenGX. Anyhow, Toymaker is an RPGmaker 2003 game made in 2017. I think it's odd using an engine this old when VXA at that point has been out for 5 years and normal VX has been out for almost a decade. I don't really think the RPGmaker 2003 engine is particularly good for adventure RPGs, especially with the combat. This game is your run-of-the-mill adventure RPG game heavily influenced by Scandinavian folklore, and also, just like our previous entry in this series, this game is also a passion project. At the end of the description of the Steam page, it reads, "This game is a 3-year-long labor of love. Everything is handcrafted, from graphics to design and music. Hopefully you enjoy the result." And you can see in the trailer that this claim is true, but not in a particularly good way. I'm gonna show my reaction and my friend's reaction to the trailer of the game, and with that I do want to make an accusation. I don't believe this game was made in 2017. It feels like it was made in early 2009. Anyhow, here's our reaction.
Toymaker.
I'm gonna show you the trailer to this because I'm not gonna lie, to me personally, I don't think this is a very well crafted trailer. I don't know when this trailer was made, but I'll at least say it doesn't look like it was made in 2017. So here's the trailer.
Have you ever heard about the Toymaker? Okay. Alright, no music, okay.
There's very, very soft music playing, like very slightly. So I saw screenshots from the game. In-game gameplay.
Oh yeah, I barely hear the music. What the fuck is that character design?
I'm I don't want to sound too mean, but the way it's edited, it feels very Windows Movie Maker.
Dude, the sprite portraits are dog shit.
I have to respect that it's like everything is self-made. Like they put their time and effort into this, but
yeah, but no offense, it looks like an
oh.
Wait, what was your sprite portrait? Can you go back to that? Like, no, not that one. The one, yeah, the one that showed that.
Oh.
It looks like one of the fucking hand Muppets, like back in the 1900s that they used to show on TV.
Oh god. Yeah. It's all self-made. It's all like every asset self-made. I'll 100% respect for it's self-made. But no, the absolute range from quality. Oh my god.
What the fuck?
At least with how this trailer is set up, I personally don't think that this is a good like introduction trailer to your game. Like,
I'm ready. What?
I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty nonsensical. I don't know if it's like a product of its time or whatever.
No, there's plenty of like decent RPG maker fucking games back in the day. And this is just like, no offense, but whoever tried like their hardest on this, I mean, respect on that, but I don't think they have a clear vision of how to make a trailer because that was just really bad.
It looks like it was made in Windows Movie Maker along with drawings from early day DeviantArt. I really doubt this was made in 2017, and if it is, then this product is already dated before we start. But never judge a book by its cover. There are two versions of the game, the first one being the demo of the game, which also doubles as this game's prologue, and then the actual base game, which costs €7, or for the Americans who don't know how much €7 is, 179,862 Vietnamese dong. Hopefully that helps. So I recommend you play the demo first and then see from there if you want to give the actual game a try. And with the demo, I can already talk about some of my biggest issues with this game, which also go into the base game. Number 1, the assets. Now, I will say, a lot of respect for doing every asset yourself. Like, that does take a significant amount of time, and I do respect that. But the quality of the assets, so for example the in-game art and music, are not good. Especially the music. It really sounds like it's in a MIDI format, because it is! Here's an example of the battle music. I don't think it particularly sounds good. I'm even willing to say that the basic music that comes with the engine itself sounds better than what's produced here. And with the art, it really varies, but it goes from
"Oh, these are pretty cool"
to
"What the fuck, is that a fucking cat?"
with most of the time it being the latter. Here's a prime example of that. The art being limited to pixel art, which I normally don't mind, don't really make for a good portrait here. This is a pixel art style that isn't really detailed, so it doesn't stand out in a positive light. They look like NFTs, I'm not gonna lie. All the assets are done by the creator himself, which is impressive, but honestly, what we've got, I wouldn't have mind using normal free assets. It's okay to use free assets for your game, which is something that Tales of Drunken Paladin did, and I think it does a good job of making it blend with the environment. So honestly, I wouldn't have minded seeing free assets in here. Number 2, stage design. These stages suck and feel like a maze. Most of the time they're fun to explore and not enough pretty to look at. Looking at snow for 10 minutes made my eyes get strained, and every dark dungeon is fun to get lost in for 10 minutes. If you want to continue into the next zone, you have to get to the border of the stage. At the border of the stage, it opens up a map, and from there you choose the next zone you want to go into. Which is fun until you realize that you can't continue into the other zone because apparently you forgot something. And you won't know when you're allowed to continue until you go back to that map and check it out again. So you could go all the way to the border of the stage, check the map and see you can continue, go back to the stage and walk around trying to find something to do. And even then, when you found something, you have to walk all the way back to the border of the stage to check if you can now continue your journey or if you're still fucking missing something. I don't like that. Fuck the stages. Gameplay. Wow, would you look at that. Same watered down RPGmaker combat as every other adventure game we've covered so far. But this time with a twist. A coat of paint that really doesn't fit it, since I already said I don't like how the assets look in this game. And also, a big change to the healing mechanic. In this game, most, if not all the heals are done by status effects. This means that when you heal a party member, instead of them being instantly healed, they will gradually get healed over time with every turn. God, this was a horrible fucking decision. The healing itself is portrayed as a status effect, but due to RPGmaker 2003 only being able to show one status effect at a time on a playable party, the second any other status effect gets placed on a character, it overlaps with the previous one. So let's say you have healing on a character, and then the next turn the enemy hits her with bleeding. Good luck finding out how long that character has before their healing runs out, and if the healing that you applied is even enough for them to survive the enemy's next hit. And even if he's going to get healed before an enemy attacks. It makes you have to track it yourself, which becomes a huge inconvenience. And sometimes you can't track it yourself. For example, enemies can also heal themselves, and they also have to deal with status healing. So when you get a status effect like bleed on an enemy, you can at least tell that they both are still healing and also have the bleeding effect. But you're completely unable to tell when it is either out healing damage taken or not. Since for your characters you can see your health go up and down, but you can't really tell that for the enemies. The healing for enemies is color coded green, so you can tell, but the second you add another status effect, it turns to blue. Is that taking that amount of damage or healing it? They really should not have fucked with the healing mechanic in this way, because it really made the combat system, which is already passable at most, turn into something that drags on and makes you want to avoid combat as much as possible, because any small fuck-ups in combat are increased by your lack of proper healing. The gameplay ended up being really appalling to me. Honestly, it's worse than Tales of Drunken Paladin. The only saving grace it has is that the enemies aren't random encounters and don't respawn while in the stage. The entire focus of the combat just being level-based is not fun. Add not being able to heal freely, so you risk the chance of dying in combat because lol, enemy targeted the guy before he could out heal the damage, is horrible. Therefore I want to say that this combat system fucking sucked. And those are actually all my issues with the game. This goes for both the demo and the base game. While I think that it is worse in the base game just due to the length of time that you have to tolerate the gameplay, for example. Aside from that, there are some neat things in this game. For example, the base game allows you to choose different classes for you and your party members, which is always a welcome mechanic, honestly. Being able to customize my party and min-max who I want to be a tank, or a healer, or a DPS, or support, and so forth is a good thing to have. You can see that mechanic in the demo too. And last thing I want to mention is this bullet point in the Steam page. Make choices that influence the people in this world. Everyone can die. Even you. Every path affects your characters, shaping their story and twisting the game. And from the prologue you can tell that yes, that does happen. Near the end of a prologue you can choose 2 possible routes. And depending on your choice you get a different stage, party members and bosses. Which is pretty impressive honestly, and it does make for some replay value. Which is sadly not good enough for me to redo it with its horrible gameplay system. But apart from that, let's finish this off quickly by talking about the story for both the prologue and the base game. The story in the prologue is not bad honestly. I like the blunt way of world building. By that I mean them being able to drop terms you may not know at that point for them to build on it later. For example, in the prologue they mention the term scald, and you can see that when it's mentioned, somebody has a bad reaction to it, and it takes a bit of time until it's explained what a scald is and why they're looked down upon. It's a very good way to make you intrigued in how the story goes, and also does a good balance of not adding too many new terms without info to get you confused, which is nice. It does have one thing that I don't particularly like, and that is that it takes a while to really develop a goal. For off, for example, you already know right off the bat, get it, what the purpose of the story is. Purify this world. Same thing goes for Tales of the Drunken Paladin. Find out what happened the night that you lost your wealth. For Toymaker, it takes a bit of time to develop, and it does start off with you being led along by a very small task, which then later on lead to somewhat of a main goal. That said, this is purely a personal taste thing, and it didn't end up taking me out of the story or making me dislike it. In the prologue, you follow the character of Baldur, no Gate this time, who first off has to help somebody in some dark part of this world. From there he is told by the chief of his village to check out what is causing all the animals to flee, which can turn out to be 2 separate things from what I played, since it depends on what route you take. The base game ends up following another character named Pale, who is the only survivor of an attack by the infamous Toymaker. For a long time we don't know what his goal is, but at some point I think it just becomes get back home. And on his journey he will meet creatures he never knew existed and see how twisted this world really is. For the story of the base game, I actually really enjoyed this. But from the world building to characters, I did like it. I won't say it's great, but honestly I think it is good. And just for that, I forced myself to play through this game. It has some pretty cool ideas for some scenes, and I'm happy I continued to it for the story. I haven't been able to test the big route splits, and footage of this game is pretty scarce, so I can't really confirm there are really big differences for the routes. But there were a lot of choices that I think would have led the game differently if I chose something else in that moment. So I'm willing to believe the claim that everyone can die, especially since I fucked up and got my protagonist killed, which I think I could have avoided. But like Tales of Drunken Paladin, oh my fucking god, the gameplay is so bad. If there's not any other type of gameplay, I could easily recommend this to people. But the gameplay is such a fucking chore, it makes this game almost unplayable. I pushed along just for the story because I really like the writing of this world and all the characters in it. But I cannot ignore that horrible fucking gameplay. So with that said, I'm honestly not surprised that the developers behind this game switch over to use normal visual novels. They also have improved their art style, so honestly, give those a try because I can at least say that the story they can write is pretty good. And hey, their free answers also free, so give them some love. But aside from that, I cannot recommend this, especially when you also keep in mind that this is not a free game. When there are a lot of RPGmaker games which are flat out better than this, it is not worth giving your money. I'm putting this above Tales of Drunken Paladin. I do despise the gameplay in this game more than Tales of Drunken Paladin, but only by a slight margin. But that said, the writing of Tales of Drunken Paladin made me really not care for its story and honestly started souring my experience with it. I know that's a personal taste thing, but this is also my list. This game did have a story that pushed me to at least try and finish it. Either way, Toymaker is still an extremely mediocre game with a pretty good story, which could have been saved if they had a better gameplay system. 2 games where I have to point out that the gameplay was unbearable. Hope this doesn't end up becoming a recurring trend. Either how, on to the next game. Time to spin the wheel. Please give me a fucking good game. What happens to the music? Anyhow, I don't know anything about this game. Hopefully it's good.